Well, I grew up in East Baltimore, and I love East Baltimore. I think East Baltimore uh, is it's a great place to live. It offers once again such close proximity to the waterfront. You're so close to the world famous Johns Hopkins Medical Institution, Kennedy Krieger. Uh, for some people that can remember shopping on Monument Street, Levinson and Klein, a very large furniture store that's no longer in business. Uh, East Baltimore has a lot of very interesting facts about it. Monument Street was the first main street, well, it was the first business district to be classified as a main street. And that's significant all in itself. The Northeast Market is the second oldest market in Baltimore City. At one point, and certainly I wasn't around during this time, but at one point, the history shows us that farmers would parade their hogs up and down Monument and Madison on their way to the Northeast Market. There used to be Easter bonnet ceremonies and parades that would happen along this Monument Street corridor. So it has a lot of rich tradition and history, and it is my hope that in redeveloping all of this, we can incorporate some of the past, but certainly usher in a dynamite future.
This part of East Baltimore, like a lot of urban neighborhoods in the Northeast, had sustained a lot of disinvestment over the decades. And as a result, by the time we began our work, 7 out of every 10 properties were vacant lots or vacant buildings. The income levels here were 40% below the city rates. Unemployment rates were higher than the city or the region. Quite frankly, anybody who had the opportunity to leave East Baltimore more than likely chose to leave a long time ago. And there were a lot of great folks left here, but unfortunately they were facing an uphill battle. So at that time, the mayor and others decided that we needed to do something dramatic and drastic if we were going to be able to bring this community back, and even more importantly, work to sustain the neighborhoods of Oliver, Collington Square, McElderry Park, and the adjoining areas. That meant, unfortunately, we had to use urban renewal. And so what we've done is work with the city and others to have a very responsible process, and it's already having borne fruit where families are moving to quality neighborhoods, and just as importantly, we already have development underway.
Right now, East Baltimore is at a critical point where change needs to happen. It needs to happen neighborhood-wise, it needs to happen economically. We need to change the perception of this Middle East area, and you're only going to do that by redeveloping it. And when you're redeveloping, sometimes you have to dig deep, and you have to cover every aspect of redevelopment. You can't just target a single block. You have to target a very large area like what's happening right now.
Well, this is probably a 10 to 15 year project horizon that we have. We've been in existence here at EBDI for 4 years, and the first part of our work really was focused on making sure that the families that we were working with in terms of relocation were provided with the very best set of benefits and support services possible. That took 3 years to make that happen. We had to acquire 916 different properties. We had to relocate 396 households from the project area, and we also had to relocate 20 businesses.
I think the largest misconception that I hear often is the idea that Johns Hopkins is moving me out, or Johns Hopkins is buying my property. And that's false. Johns Hopkins is a partner in the redevelopment, and the partnership has nothing to do with construction.
This is home for people. It may not be the same home that they bought 30 years ago when they first moved in, but it's still their home. And when you move folks from a home, you have a psychological effect on them that you can't minimize. So we've tried to provide a lot of support services for those families here in East Baltimore, But I would say that when you look at communities like East Baltimore and Camden, Philadelphia, Detroit, St. Louis, Cleveland, you really should look at it in terms of exercising eminent domain and urban renewal only in the very limited circumstances possible. I would say that this will be a unique place in that it will offer a range of housing. It will offer the opportunity to be right next to a world-class institution, but in a neighborhood, as opposed to just a bunch of buildings to the north of Johns Hopkins. It will have green space and mass transit-oriented connections and a new community school campus that is incredibly important to attracting people to work and live in a community.
I think we'll have an East Baltimore or a Middle East Baltimore that very few of us will recognize. It certainly will not look the same. I think it will be one that, it is my hope that it is one that is very inclusive, both economically and ethnically. So that is my hope of what it will look like in 10 years.
East Baltimore is East Baltimore. If you spend a day in East Baltimore, you're going to come back and spend a week, you know, especially if you got a heart, you know, because there's so much need right now, and there's so many needy people. You're going to see other faces in those faces, you know. You're going to see other programs within the programs that are over here that are still working. So, I mean, it's like you're going to mirror something. And if you can come across town to East Baltimore, you're going to want to definitely take what we have and take it back home.